Picture a shark so massive that it would make Jaws look like a tiny goldfish. Believe it or not, such a creature once ruled the oceans, the Megalodon, the largest predator our seas have ever known. While scientists agree it's extinct, there are still stories and supposed sightings that keep the legend alive. Here are 20 moments when people claim to have caught the Megalodon on camera. Number 20. Deep sea sharks. Now, let's tackle this from a different angle. If people believe that the Megalodon exists in today's oceans, the biggest question is not about how big they are, but where they would be. If you recall, a somewhat recent movie was named The Meg. You would think that that movie posed that the shark wouldn't be living in the upper layers of the surface waters, but instead way down in the deep depths of the ocean. So, is that where the Megalodon is hiding today? Just as important, can sharks live in the crushing depths of the ocean? The answer to that second question is yes. In fact, there are numerous sharks that have been spotted both in incredibly deep waters of the ocean and in some of the deepest parts like the Mariana Trench. For example, back in August of 2024, some scientists were going down deep into the ocean via a submarine when they found themselves being examined by a shark. It was not a Megalodon, or else this story would have probably led the video, but instead it was a shark known as the six-gill shark. The reason it's important is that this isn't just the oldest shark in its own order, but it's actually an incredibly primitive kind of shark known as a living fossil. That's because the creature is actually much older than you would expect in the species since. By that, I mean that these kinds of sharks were around since before the time of dinosaurs, and since it's been around ever since, presumably, that would also mean that the six-gill lived when the Megalodon was around. Now, to be clear, it is not as big as the Megalodon by any stretch of the imagination, as the one recorded by the Submarine was only 5 meters long. But even still, if you needed a submarine to go deep enough to find this particular shark, well, that shows that they can live deep in the dark depths of the Earth's oceans, and we know that there are more sharks down there. It just can't be proven that there's a Megalodon. Number 19. Whale shark. I told you that whales and sharks have more things in common than what you may think, even when it comes to the Megalodon. And when it comes to the being known as the whale shark, it's actually stated to be bigger in the present day than the Megalodon ever was in its time. At 18.8 meters, it is the largest confirmed whale shark that's ever found, and they're not exactly measured regularly, so they could easily be quite bigger. Just as important, the true length of the Megalodon is a heavily debated topic, so it could have been much more short than the 20 meters that many would predict. The other twist is that while the whale shark is the size of the Megalodon by most accounts, it's a filter feeder, and that means that it eats the smallest of ocean creatures in order to survive, the exact opposite of the Megalodon. They do dine mostly on plankton and small fish, and swim with their wide mouths agape to scoop up any kind of tiny organisms in one of nature's most efficient feeding systems. And despite being sharks, the whale sharks are non-aggressive, posing no threat to humans. They're known for their calm demeanor, often allowing divers and snorkelers to swim alongside them for unforgettable encounters. It becomes a surreal experience to share the water with such a massive yet peaceful creature. One of the most striking features would be its unique pattern of spots and stripes. The markings are like fingerprints, and no two are exactly alike. Researchers use these patterns to identify and track individual sharks, which aids in conservation efforts. Unfortunately, though, they are listed as endangered due to threats like bycatching and fishing gear, boat strikes, and habitat destruction, but conservation groups and ecotourism initiatives are in place in order to try and protect them. Number 18. Great white attack. I'm going to start this list off with a bit of a different way because instead of talking about the mighty Megalodon right off the bat, I'm instead going to talk about the biggest carnivorous shark that you should fear in the world today, and that would be the great white. This is the infamous species of shark that has spawned numerous legends and tales, including the Spielberg film Jaws. And while these sharks are not quite as evil as Bruce, we can't say that they can be very aggressive even when it's the experts who are studying them. This case comes from 2020, where an expert is filming a special for Discovery's Shark Week called Great White Open Ocean. And that expert in question is inside of a special plastic cage that he feels is going to protect him from the sharks. He's about to find out how very, very wrong he is about that. At first, the shark merely bumps the cage to see what it might be like, and then, using the incredible power and speed in its body, it proceeds straight up to wreck that cage, leaving the expert barely staying afloat and having to call in for help to get him out of the water before the shark gets to him first. There is a lot to break down here, which includes the fact that the expert was fine. He was able to get to safety, and even use the close encounter with the great white to drum up excitement for Shark Week, whatever it does to get those ratings. The other key thing to note here is that this shark-proof cage was clearly not thought well enough out. You may recall that most cages of this nature are built out of steel and not plastic. And just to be clear, sharks, including great whites, have broken through steel cages in the past as well. This is one of the many reasons that people fear great whites, and they're barely a third of the size of the Megalodon at its peak. So now, just imagine a Megalodon being around. Number 17. Megalodon Extinction. Given that so many people think that the Megalodon actually exists today, it becomes important to note and chronicle when the Megalodon were said to have gone extinct. According to scientists, the giant sharks lived 23 to 3.6 million years ago, so that's quite a long time span and a long time ago. Not just in a galaxy far, far away. These were, as noted before, apex predators, so they were not exactly wiped out by another species, and that leaves the question of what actually did kill them. Most scientists believe that it was a mixture of climate change and a simple dying out due to hunters. During the latter parts of their existence, the Earth was undergoing a massive cooling, which heavily affected the waters that the Megalodon would exist in, and also the other creatures that lived in those waters as well. The sharks were known to swim in more warm waters, and those were getting cooler and colder, and that likely limited the range that the Megalodon had and what it was able to consume. And when you can't eat, well, you end up dying. There are even those who feel the Megalodons may have been cannibals that ate each other in order to try to satiate that hunger. And if that was done in large numbers, it's no wonder why they ended up dying out in the end. Number 16. Megalodon Fossils. It's important at this point in the video to highlight a key question that you may have about the Megalodon and then promptly answer it. You may be asking, how do we even know that the Megalodon existed in the first place? Well, the simple answer is that we have numerous fossils that do prove its existence. And just as important, we got these fossils from unique places that you would have never guessed. For example, a bunch of teeth fossils were found in Chile's Atacama Desert, and it's apparently a haven of those kind of things. Now, if you are wondering why there are teeth fossils in a desert, that's actually pretty easy to answer. It was found near the desert that was close to the Pacific Ocean. And so, once upon a time, millions of years ago, this area of the world was likely more underwater than it was right now. Then, as those water levels receded for one reason or another, the bones and remains of the Megalodon broke down and they would soon find themselves, not in the water, but in the sand. And with so many of these teeth being found, it's easy to compare them and see which shark that they had belonged to. In this case, it was the Megalodon. In fact, the Megalodon actually means big teeth, which is appropriate as these things are literally huge. One of the biggest ones ever found in South America was actually over 7 centimeters in length, and that is quite the twist. So now, just picture a shark that wasn't only 20 meters long, but potentially had rows upon rows of teeth like this. That shark was one of the apex predators of the ancient world, and it could pretty much eat anything that it wanted, anytime that it wanted to. Oh, and the Megalodons were known for their ravenous hunger, so they were inclined to eat a whole heck of a lot. And while it can't be said for certain that these sharks live in the modern day, we absolutely know that they existed way back when. Now it's time for today's topic. While filming a new documentary about great white sharks near the coast of South Africa, a popular wildlife channel's deep-sea drone captured a moment that has left scientists and viewers stunned. The footage shows an enormous, unidentified shark hunting and devouring great white sharks as if they were mere snacks. The drone, deployed to track the behavior of great whites, accidentally recorded the shocking encounter. The massive shark, estimated to be over 70 feet long, dwarfed the great whites, which appeared no larger than grapes in comparison. Its sheer size, speed, and power were unlike anything ever documented. This is not just a big shark, it's a predator on a scale we've never seen before, said one marine biologist reviewing the footage. Speculation is rampant, with some experts suggesting it could be a surviving Megalodon, the prehistoric apex predator thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. Others believe it might be an undiscovered species of deep-sea shark. The discovery has sparked global fascination and fear, raising questions about what else might be lurking in the ocean's depths. For now, the enormous shark remains a mystery, a chilling reminder of the untamed and unpredictable nature of the sea. Number 15. Shark attacks on humans. Easily one of the biggest reasons that people really don't want the Megalodon to be alive is because of how it's going to ramp up shark attacks on humans as a whole. While shark attacks are not as numerous as you may think, they do happen, and sometimes they can happen quite randomly. One such case was in South Africa back in 2004, where an elderly woman was going for a swim in her local suburb that she had done for almost 2 decades without fail, and yet on this day, a great white shark attacked her and killed her. The swimming was so routine that a friend of hers was doing his own at the same time by walking around the area, and that's when he saw her in the water right on time. He said that he saw the shark's fin peeking out of the water, and in a matter of moments, the attack was over and the woman was gone. A search wouldn't even end up turning up her body, which should say quite a bit right there. Shark attacks are known to happen quite a bit in places like South Africa, but that's not the only thing that sharks are known to strike when the mood takes them. Number 14. The biggest great white. As I've shown you before, the great white shark is a creature that many people do fear and that many have wondered just how big they get. While the sizes vary depending on where the shark is and where it's potentially captured, I can tell you about specific ones that blew the world's minds in one way or another. For example, the tale of Big Blue is that of the largest great white shark ever recorded on camera. This one was 6 meters in length, and equally important, it was a 50-year-old female shark that was pregnant. Talk about stacking the deck to be special. She was found off of Mexico's Guadalupe Island, and once the video of the encounter with her via the divers that were with her went on the internet, well, it of course went viral, and that shouldn't be all that surprising. There are some surprising things to be mentioned, though. One such thing to note is that the female great whites are actually larger than their male counterparts more times than not. However, whenever you see a great white shark attack or see one getting caught by a fisherman, it's a male almost every single time. That's a great mystery that many people are still trying to figure out. Where do female great whites go while the males are doing their thing? Equally as important and almost as impressive is that the divers in this clip were actually able to get really close to the great white and it didn't mind them at all. The two species even high-fived at one point, which is not something you would expect from such a large shark. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do this with a megalodon, so once again, be grateful that great whites have at least a few advantages on their ancient predecessor. Number 13. Clues to Megalodon. While I've talked about the Megalodon in various ways, it is also important to ask why some people believe that it still exists in today's world, given that there are no true sightings that are meaningful. While there have been clues that do point to something like that, like the Megalodon existing in the world, and I do mean actual clues and not just conspiracy theories from internet nutjobs. In the case of one shark attack in 2019, a mako shark was somehow and in some way bitten in half near Australia. Now I'm not joking. A fisherman pulled out the head of that mako shark, and it had clear signs that the rest of its body had actually been bitten off and not chopped. Obviously, that becomes a huge problem, as makos, including the one from Australia, well, they can be about 4 meters in length, and they're one of the more aggressive sharks in the world today. As such, it would take something pretty powerful and big to be able to bite such a large shark's head off that cleanly. The irony here is that there have been multiple cases of these kinds of shark attacks in the past, and all of them do point to a certain super predator that lurks in the deep, and while we obviously can't say that it was a megalodon that caused these attacks, there has to be something killing the sharks like this. Number 12. Shark versus submarine. We previously talked about how a submarine was able to get a good look at an ancient shark, but now I'm going to show you how a shark got really up and close and personal with a submarine. Ironically, the scenario was actually almost identical to the story from before with this kind of shark. The sub in question was over 700 meters below the surface, and it stumbled upon a group of 6 gilled sharks. This was a history-making moment last time, but this time, it turns into almost a horror film. The sharks in question are actually feeding, as they had found the body of a sperm whale, which they were more than happy to end up devouring. Where the sub-attack comes in is that these 6 gilled sharks felt that the submarine was actually trying to get in on their meal, so they reared up and began to swarm it. Not only did they swarm, but they actually started ramming that submarine with their heads. Even the people on the inside knew that the sharks could potentially break the viewing window, and that would end up causing all kinds of problems. Eventually, those sharks did back off and the submarine crew got away safely, but it was anything but easy. Number 11. Double Trouble. Remember that movie The Meg? Well, one of the twists of that film was that the people dealing with the Megalodon soon had to deal with a second one, which is not fun even for Jason Statham. In this case, a diver allegedly came into contact with 2 great white sharks at the same time, or at least that's what they claim. There seems to be some disconnect on whether or not that was actually going on, but we'll just let it go for now. The sharks in question were allegedly both 6 meters long, which meant that they absolutely dwarfed the diver that was attempting to film all of everything. But thankfully, he wasn't hurt in the experience. But really, could you imagine what you would feel if 2 great whites of that size came at you? Anyways, shaking in your dive suit wouldn't even be able to cut it. Number 10. Shark near the shore. Regardless of whether it's a megalodon, the great white, a tiger shark, or something else that feels as though it's locked in on killing a human, if a person sees a shark near the shore in any way whatsoever, they have a tendency to flip out. Case in point, in 2023 near Cornwall in the UK, a woman was with her family at a seaside resort when she saw the telltale signs of a shark near the shore. Equally as important, it wasn't only on the surface, it was near a bunch of boats, and so people were definitely nearby. The good news is that after taking a picture of the creature via the fins that were out of the water, people were able to identify it as a basking shark. That's good news because while the megalodon might have been the ultimate meat eater in the waters out there in the ocean, there are plenty of non-carnivorous sharks in the world today. And the basking shark is one of them. Plus, they can get nearly the size of a megalodon as they reach up to 15 meters at times. The one that this woman saw was not all that big, but that's not exactly the point. Being one of these gentle giants so near the shore is quite rare, and so it became a very special experience. Ironically, a group of seals that were nearby did not feel the same way as they were apparently hiding out from the shark. Number 9. The Goblin Shark. While the Megalodon is one of the oldest sharks to ever exist, it is not the only old one that's in the waters. In fact, there are some that came before it that do still exist today. I've already shown you one in the six-gill shark, but another one to take note of would be the Goblin Shark. This is another deep-sea terror that has been around for allegedly 125 million years, and yes, it does still exist today in the deep, dark depths of the ocean. What arguably makes the shark more scary than the Megalodon, despite its massively smaller size, is the fact that it's known to extend its mouth out of its body in order to be able to snatch up its prey. That's right, this shark is basically a xenomorph like in the Alien films, and I have a burning desire to just move on. Number 8. Shark-on-shark violence. If you recall during the Megalodon extinction topic that I mentioned before, it's believed that the ancient shark might have even eaten its own at certain points in its life. The irony is that this kind of thing does happen with other sharks, including great white sharks attacking one another for personal and prideful reasons. In Guadalupe, there is a shark that is so distinctive in its looks that it was known as Bite Face, and no, it was not named by a 5-year-old student. Local divers and researchers could always spot Bite Face from a distance, thanks to the jagged marks and healed wounds crisscrossing its snout. Some even started to root for the underdog shark, sharing updates about its latest run-ins and daring escapes. Bite Face became a bit of a legend, with tourists hoping to catch a glimpse of the scrappy survivor during cage dives. Despite the constant challenges, the shark's resilience seemed to inspire everyone who heard its story. The reason for this is that it was one of the smaller great white sharks of the area and it refused to back down to the bigger great whites. And so, those sharks would go and bite that shark so that it would have to learn its lesson. It never truly did, and thus it has a bunch of scars all over its face, but even still, it made the shark famous, so perhaps it was worth it in the end. Number 7. Shark versus cage. Remember when we saw that sharks had been known to rip through steel cages that were designed to keep them out? Well, here's a case in point. This was another piece of footage that was taken for Discovery Channel Shark Week. Specifically, they were looking for a shark serial killer, and indeed may have found that shark in question. The tension was sky-high as the crew watched from the boat, radios crackling with updates as the shark circled closer. At one point, the shark's teeth scraped against the bars, sending a metallic screech through the water that made everyone flinch. The expert inside the cage kept his cool, but you could see his hands gripping the bars a little tighter. It was a stark reminder that even the best technology can't always guarantee safety when you're dealing with a determined predator. The expert then went into the shark cage and then the shark showed up. As you can see, that shark goes from merely checking out the cage to ripping off one of the flotation devices, and then trying to get inside of the cage itself, which it nearly does. Eventually, it does go away, but other divers have not been so lucky, and if the shark kept on going, it likely would have ended up getting in. Number 6. The most aggressive great white. One key similarity between great white sharks and the infamous Megalodon is that they are aggressive creatures. That's what made them such a terror of the deep. Back in 2013, where we are here at Shark Week again, they decided to go after one of these legendary aggressive great whites off the coast of New Zealand. In these waters laid a creature that was known as Slash, and he was indeed touted as the most aggressive great white shark in the world. Slash was infamous among local fishermen, who swapped stories about his close encounters and the damage he'd done to boats and cages. Some even claimed he had a knack for showing up just when you least expected it, making him a bit of a legend in the area. The Discovery Channel crew spent days tracking him, hoping to capture his raw power on film, and the anticipation was electric. When Slash finally appeared, his massive scar was unmistakable, a reminder of just how tough life in the ocean can be. He was so touted as that Discovery Channel made him the poster shark of the week. While they did get footage of Slash in action, including with his legendary scar that humans had given to him, the scientists were sure to note that while they did have plenty of great whites in the area, including Slash, the number of attacks are actually pretty low. Number 5. Attacked whale. Now, how does a whale tie into a Megalodon? Well, it would be more than you think, actually. While the Megalodon may have been an apex predator, you can have more than one in a region, and in the ancient waters, the whale known as the Leviathan was the sole creature that could take on a Megalodon and actually live. Fossil evidence even shows bite marks on ancient whale bones that match the size and shape of Megalodon teeth, hinting at epic underwater battles. Some paleontologists believe these clashes shaped the evolution of both species, driving them to grow larger and more formidable. Today, whales still face threats in the ocean, but their biggest enemies are often other whales or pods of orcas. The drama of predator and prey continues, just with different players in the modern era. Fast forward to now and whales continue to surprise us, such as when this beached whale washed ashore in Oregon and was found to not only be tangled up, but also had been apparently attacked by a killer whale. Sadly, that whale was dead when it was discovered, and it apparently was rather thin for a whale of its type, leaving even more questions about what had really happened to it in the end. Number 4. Do sharks like surfers? One of the more classic kinds of shark attacks on humans is that of sharks, especially great whites, going after surfers. To be clear, sharks have attacked surfers over the years, including one famous attack that left a woman without a lot of her arm. However, to say that sharks go after surfers is a bit of a misnomer. In reality, most shark encounters with surfers are cases of mistaken identity, with the shark confusing a surfboard for a seal or other prey. There have even been instances where sharks have bumped or nibbled boards, only to swim away once they realize their mistake. Some surfers wear special wetsuits or use shark deterrent devices, hoping to reduce the risk even further. Despite the fear factor, many seasoned surfers say the thrill of catching a wave far outweighs the slim chance of a shark encounter. Many could point to this as the Jaws effect of people being afraid of going into open water because of sharks. Yet, as noted before, there are not as many attacks on humans by sharks as you may think. The best thing to do if you're a surfer is just to be mindful of where you're surfing and what's around you. Now, of course, if it was a megalodon coming in after you, you're probably already dead, the moment that it ends up laying its eyes on you. Number 3. Carcass Rescue. Now let's head to Italy to talk about a 70-ton whale carcass that was discovered and then had to be removed by several pieces of heavy equipment. The body was first found in the water, and then it floated to the surface and washed ashore. Most would agree that it was likely one of the biggest whale carcasses that was ever found in the region of the Mediterranean. The sheer size of the whale drew crowds of curious onlookers, with some people traveling from neighboring towns just to catch a glimpse. Local authorities had to cordon off the area, both for safety and to keep souvenir hunters at bay. The removal process was a massive operation, involving cranes, barges, and a team of marine biologists working around the clock. The smell, as you can imagine, was absolutely overwhelming and lingered for days. As for what they wanted to do with the body once they recovered it, they wanted to get the whale skeleton, since it had obviously had a full one, and then put it into a museum. Number 2. Shark versus boat. If a megalodon were alive today and attacked a standard fishing vessel, that boat would likely be gone pretty quick. However, in Tasmania, we got to see the closest thing to that via a great white shark that suddenly attacked a fishing boat. The boat itself was helmed by a seasoned fisherman and his son, who then went to a nearby island to look at some seals. Then suddenly, a roughly 4-meter great white shark rammed into the boat, and it actually came out of the water to show its face to the scared duo. The impact was so strong that the boat rocked violently, nearly tossing their gear and themselves overboard. For a tense few moments, the shark circled, bumping the hull and leaving deep scratches along the side. The fisherman's son managed to snap a few photos, which later made headlines and had locals swapping stories about the one that got away. It was a heart-pounding reminder of just how powerful and unpredictable these predators can be. The boat itself was said to be 5 meters, so it could have gone the shark's way if it had not decided to leave after a while. After the attack, the two people then went home. Number 1. Divers and sharks. Without a doubt, one of the biggest dangers when you're going scuba diving is encountering a shark. It doesn't have to be a great white or anything of that nature, as certain sharks will attack if they feel threatened or that their pups are in danger. Over in Bali in 2019, a group of divers were having fun near a coral reef when they suddenly found themselves in the presence of a great white shark. The reason that this was particularly shocking is that those waters are known to be rather cold and great whites don't typically wander into such conditions. The divers froze for a moment, their hearts pounding as the massive silhouette glided past. One of them managed to capture a shaky video, which later went viral online and sparked heated debates about shark migration patterns. Some locals even claimed it was a sign that ocean currents were changing, bringing unexpected visitors to their shores. For the divers, it was a once-in-a-lifetime encounter that left them both terrified and awestruck. And so, it was a true unknown as to what it would do if it even got closer. Thankfully, after they had scurried away a bit, the shark let the people be. But that could have been so much more worse if certain events had played out slightly differently. That wraps up our deep dive into the mysteries of the world's oceans, and the question of whether we really need to worry about the megalodon making a comeback. Does it give you peace of mind knowing these ancient sharks are almost certainly extinct? Or do you think there's still a chance one could be lurking out there? Maybe you have another prehistoric creature in mind that you think would be even scarier to encounter today. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're here, don't forget to check out the other fascinating videos popping up on your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.